Hi, I'm Emily Endo. I'm an artist based in Joshua Tree, California. Today I'm going to tell you a little bit about my practice. I think of my practice in two parts. The first part is studio-based and studio-based research. And the second part is community-based, so things like curation, teaching, and interacting with my environment. In my sculptural and installation work, I use glass, sensory experience, natural materials, and found objects. I am drawn to the disparate yet conjoined histories of science and mysticism, and the ways this combination manifests in the mythologization of natural phenomena, particularly metamorphosis. My material choices are governed by each material's cultural history and its ability to impart meaning. Hair and leather reference the body, ornamentation, and culture. Glass, with its aesthetic, scientific, and practical history, represents preservation while simultaneously signifying fragility, impermanence, and transformation. The elements and materials within my work function as a language of recurring symbols. Crystals represent natural transformation and mysticism. Piercing studs represent corporal self-expression, referencing both the inevitable change of the self through time and the desire for metamorphosis. Hair, hands, and shells are stand-ins for the human body. Hair has been used throughout human history as a socio-cultural signifier of gender, race, class, and culture. The hair extensions and wigs I use in my work are a reference to the long, shiny, straight hair I wanted as a child, which at the time I viewed as the pinnacle of feminine beauty. I use shells as a stand-in for water, as well as the fragmented female body. My use of shells is a nod to the representation of the biological female in art history and mythology. The Birth of Venus by 15th century painter Sandro Botticelli is an example of this. In this painting, the goddess Venus emerges from the sea standing on a giant scallop shell. This theme has been repeated over and over in art history. In 2018, I moved from Portland, Oregon to the Mojave Desert. This move has had a significant impact on my work. One of the major shifts I have experienced has been my heightened awareness and interest in water. Living in the desert, water becomes a central part of life and a precious commodity. I spend a lot of time monitoring, recycling, and collecting water. For example, we collect rainwater at our home, and our whole studio is hooked up to a gray water system. This increased interest in water has also made me consider the human body and its relationship to fluid and the global importance of water. In her 2017 book, Bodies of Water, Astrida Nimanis states that water is the element that more than any other ties human beings to the world around them, from the oceans that surround us to the water that makes up most of our bodies. Blood, bile, intracellular fluid, a small ocean swallowed, a wild wetland in our gut, rivulets forsaken making their way from our insides to our outs, from watery womb to watery world, we are bodies of water. By exploring the cultural and philosophical implications of this fact, we can start to understand that our bodies are fundamentally part of the natural world and not separate from it or privileged to it. Over the last 2 years, I've been actively exploring these ideas through multiple mediums. This series of work, titled Immaterial, approached the body's relationship to water through bodily fluid, bathing traditions, and scent. This work featured several multimedia glass fountains that were filled with perfumed liquid. In this series, fragmentation, ornamentation, and corporal self-expression intersect with fantasy, creating references to ancient and modern ritual purification as a means to simultaneously celebrate the body and transcend its materiality. For me, the transformation into and the absorption of the ephemeral speaks to the yearning to escape from the trappings of a body that is at times alien to myself. This piece, titled She-Wolf, is a sculptural fountain based on the Capitoline wolf, a Roman sculpture depicting a mother wolf nursing the mythical twin founders of Rome. As scented water circulates through the fountain, it drips through the breast of the form, and the smell of flowers and salt are spread throughout the gallery. In this piece, the wolf becomes a stand-in for the female body and a representation of strength, fluidity, and the nurturing quality of water. I also explore themes of fluidity, symbolic body, and ephemerality in this piece, Neon Venus. Neon Venus consisted of 2 conch shells with glass bubbles emerging from the shell's cavities. Scented pink and blue water, referencing gender codes, bodily fluid, and cartoon imagery, pumped through them using medical and aquarium tubing. The glass for these pieces were actually blown directly into the shells by glassblower Lynn Everett Reed from Vitrolux Studio in Portland, Oregon. The pink water in this piece was scented with electrical smoke. The blue water was scented with white roses. When the viewer stands between the 2 pieces, the combination of the 2 works create what I think of as a neon rose scent. And what I think of a neon rose would be that kind of faint smell of electrical smoke, electrical buzzing that you can almost see or feel when you're around neon lights. And then combined with the fresh smell of roses and rose perfume. For the rose scent, I actually combined some really beautiful extractions from white roses, some natural extractions. And then I also used synthetic scent molecules that kind of give you a classic rose perfume smell. So I like that combination of artificial and real within my work as well. So you kind of have these things that take you to a really real moment while also reminding you of all these other memories you might have had of a synthetic smell, which we're really much more accustomed to synthetic smells now. This next piece, Transpiration, or A Sculpture That Sweats, consists of a hollow cast glass female head that has salt-scented liquid that drips through holes drilled into the figure's face. And this creates the appearance of sweat and references liquid entering and exiting the body. I'm really interested in this idea of absorption through the skin and expelling liquid through the skin, and that kind of that breathing through the permeable membrane that is our body. Prior to Immaterial, I created an exhibition titled Water Baby that explored water and feminine symbology through the language of materials and cartoons. My favorite piece from this series was called Singing Shell. Singing Shell consisted of a conch shell embedded with an Arduino speaker and a proximity sensor. As the viewer approached the piece, the shell would project an edited version of Angel Baby by Rosie and the Originals. Angel Baby is an old song about adolescent desire. The sound distortion created by the reworking of the song, as well as the natural echo effect created by the shell's cavity, emphasize the sense of longing, obsession, and entrapment within the song. I had the privilege of working with musician Derek Moneypenny on this piece. He created the sound for me, and then I put it together in the shell. We talked a lot about what the idea of singing underwater would sound like, and that kind of removed distance, like a mermaid was singing to you from the deep. In this piece, the shell becomes a stand-in for a telephone or a radio. And this use of a natural object as a surrogate for a modern technology is a hallmark of classic cartoons. And I like this idea of utilizing augmented seashells to create little machines and technology. So I played with that again in this next piece, Transfer Station. In this piece, the conch shell contains a small pump that's submerged in a reservoir of lemon juice. Over the course of the day, the lemon juice is slowly pumped into the water that has been dyed with Clitoria ternate flowers, also known as butterfly pea flowers. The flowers naturally tint the water blue. The addition of the lemon juice, which is an acid, alters the water's pH, and as this change occurs, the flower dye shifts from teal to blue to deep purple. And so over the course of the exhibition, the water color would change and become just deeper and deeper and darker. Also, as a side note for this exhibition, I'm very interested in sensory experience, multiple sensory experience, so we also served drinks that were using this flower, so that as people were watching this change, they were also drinking the drink and having their own kind of up close and personal experience with it as it entered their body. My recent work is strongly influenced by contemporary post-humanist feminist philosophy, which takes into account the complex and entangled human relationship with animals, environment, and technology. This philosophy has also become embedded in my teaching and community-based practices. In 2018, my partner Emily Endo and I began the High Desert Observatory at our home studio in Yucca Valley, just outside of Joshua Tree National Park. The High Desert Observatory is an education studio that offers workshops and programming focused on sustainable craft, art, and aromatics. It's also our house. We were able to get a house and some land out in the desert, and we've been fixing it up, our yard into what will hopefully be a really vibrant high desert permaculture farm at some point. And then also building our studio into our personal studio, a fabrication studio, and an education studio. So that allows us to keep our overhead really low so we can do some really interesting experimental programming and try to also keep our costs down so that our classes are accessible to people. Our vision for the High Desert Observatory is to think about slowness, reflection, activism, and more than anything, artistic expression through the natural world. We call ourselves an observatory to reflect this interest. Living in the Mojave Desert has really taught me to listen and respond to my environment. Our daily life here feels like a dialogue, a call and response. You can't fight the desert, you just have to respond to it. For example, I wake up very early to catch the cool early morning weather. We've been collecting rainwater and solar power. We've also been exploring different gardening techniques because out here we find we really have to augment the soil so that it holds moisture and also to put nutrients back in the soil. So we compost. We've also been working with some ancient techniques of augmenting soil. So we've also been working with hugelkultur, which is an ancient Western European method of filling garden beds with fallen logs and sticks, branches, and putting that underneath a layer of straw and then your soil and your plants on top of that. And so that helps create a really nice environment that has some fungus in it and some good bacteria and also retains moisture. We've also been using Oya pots, which is an ancient tradition. I believe it started in northern Africa, but it's all over the world. And an Oya pot is really interesting and conceptually actually connects to my work, I think. An Oya pot is an unglazed ceramic pot, and you embed it in the soil near your plants, and then you fill it with water. And because it's unglazed, the water slowly seeps out of the pores of the ceramic, and the roots of the plants are able to kind of slowly draw it out as they need it. So it's a really beautiful symbiotic process, but also to me, I want to make a piece related to it because I love that idea of, again, like water entering in and exiting the body and something very porous. We've also been working a lot with our neighbors. We collaborate with our neighbor and partner, the Yucca Valley Material Lab, which is a residency and education space just down the road from us, started by Heidi Schwegler, who moved with us from Portland, Oregon, actually a couple years ago. And we've helped her build this space up. And it's pretty incredible what she's done. She's created a space where artists can come learn about glass, also explore different materials and the desert. And then also we teach some classes there. And then the classes that we teach at our own space really focus on ecology, working with natural materials, textiles, because that's actually my background, aromatics, and drawing, painting, just responding to the natural world. So in 2021, we're really excited. We've got some great classes coming up. We're going to do some more natural dyeing using plants from the desert. I also teach a class there in the spring about natural dyeing using Southern California plants. So that's everything from native plants to also domestic plants, which for people who don't live out in the wilderness, it feels a little bit more accessible to know that you could use stuff from your backyard or your neighbor's yard. And then we're also going to be doing ink making, so making your own ink using plants and also kitchen scraps. So things like avocado pits, the water from soaking black beans, and then some observational drawing classes too. I've also been working on designing an immersive workshop exploring scent, taste, sight, and color through the lens of your senses, and also through the lens of history and colonialism and globalism. And I've been working on that with Mai Nguyen, who is a Southern California-based farmer who also works with the California Grain Campaign. And Mai is a farmer and organizer who specializes in growing heirloom ethnic crops using organic, drought-tolerant, and soil-enriching methods. So we're really interested in reaching out to people who are doing lots of different things and kind of combining them under this umbrella of eco-focused, sensory-focused expressions of art and environment. Since the pandemic hit, we've also been focusing on creating some online content. Right now, Michael and I are working on making a series of online video tutorials and some online learning options. Those should launch later this summer. Having the pandemic happen really forced us to start thinking about, what does online learning look like, and how can we reach a broader community, and how can things become more accessible. So it's actually a great challenge for us to start thinking about our practice outside of just Southern California. One thing I didn't mention is this idea of place. I'm actually originally from San Diego, which is just a couple hours west of where we live, and Michael, my partner, is from Portland, Oregon. So we both really have a West Coast point of view, and we're both really interested in place and location and really digging into it as a way to feed your practice, feed your community, and sustainable practice. And because we both are from the West Coast, it's been an opportunity for us to really delve into environments that we grew up in and re-examine our relationship to these places, and also our preconceived ideas about the areas and the history and the plants and the history of the people who occupied those spaces. In the spirit of re-examination, I wanted to share this one last quote with you from Donna Haraway's book, Staying with the Trouble. In her book, she says, "It matters what matters we use to think other matters with. It matters what stories we tell to tell other stories with. It matters what knots knot knots, what thoughts think thoughts, what description describes descriptions, and what ties ties ties. It matters what stories make worlds and what worlds make stories." And I've been thinking a lot about this in relationship to approaching a place and the world around me, and also I think it applies to current events as well, really re-examining our biases and society's structure. I want to thank you for spending this time with me and spending the time listening to a little bit about my practice and life, and I hope to share more stories with you in the future.